Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Everything and Anything podcast with Sarah. This is so nerve-wracking. I'm literally shaking my boots right now, but I am so happy that you are here and that you're listening and to be starting this journey. So, what is this podcast? Let's get into that. I wanted to do something to have a space for the girls to pretty much figure almost everything out. We're going to talk about literally everything and anything, which is the name of this podcast. I wanted to have a space for us to discuss different topics and to be able to communicate in this newfound way, and to also have a little creative outlet for myself as well. I'm going to dive into some ideas that I have at the moment. These might change, these might stay the same, the list might become smaller, bigger as time goes on. We will see. So, to get into it first, I am Muslim, alhamdulillah. I was born Muslim, I've been raised Muslim, so I will be talking about Islam and a lot of topics that I do talk about that are not specifically Islamic might also just center Islam around the topic as well. Another thing that I'll be talking about is STEM. We love STEM, we love girls in STEM, we love women in STEM, so we will be talking about different areas in STEM, ways to get into it, and things around that nature. Also, I will be talking about AI because that is currently the field that I am in. We will talk about data science, computer science, coding, machine learning, all of the above. We'll also be talking about some history, mostly because I really want to learn more history. And so I think this would be a good way for us to learn together, just in general, all the topics as well, but also history. I want to learn more specifically about Palestine, the history behind Palestine. I want to learn more about also where I am from, which is Pakistan. I want to learn more about the history of Pakistan. I want to learn also about where I was born and where I grew up, which is Saudi Arabia, and not only Saudi Arabia, but also the Arab world. I also want to learn more about Islamic history. Another thing I want to talk about is books. I want to talk about my thoughts on books, some book reviews, my favorite books, and make this a little mini book club, maybe. We will also talk about being a woman, what it means to be a Muslim woman, what it means to be a person of color, what it means to be a minority, especially in North America, what it means to be an immigrant, and how all of those intersections come together into being a woman and a girl in this big old world. We will also talk about work. We will talk about work life balance, finding work itself, and going through the job hunting process, which is a daunting task on its own, deciding different career paths, finding your passion in work. I also want to talk about school. I love school. I'm very much a nerd. But yeah, we'll talk about my experience and other people's experiences. So, hint, hint, there might be guest speakers. I want to talk about university. We'll talk about grad school and just the overall importance of education. I also want to talk about psychology in terms of therapy, self-help, self-improvement. I think that is a good space for us to dive into as we go on this journey together. The last thing that we will talk about is figuring out our 20s. Yay, what a fun topic. We're going to talk about friends and just navigating friendships in your 20s and into adulthood, making new friends in your adulthood, your family in your 20s, and managing your life and adapting to the changes that happen in your 20s, and trying out new things and experimenting, and essentially just talking about going through it in your 20s because I think we are all going through it. That is pretty much an intro of what this podcast will entail. If any of these sparks your interest, I would love if you join the family and continue to listen along as we pump out more episodes. Today, I think that the best way to start this off is with the first topic that I mentioned, which is Islam, and starting things with the name of Allah. And in this way, I think will bring more goodness into this, and who doesn't want that, right? It's also the month of Ramadan right now, so I think there's no better time to talk about one, the month itself, and also Islam and Allah. So let's get into the first episode. Yay! Oh my god, are you guys excited? Okay, so what is Ramadan? For those that don't know, Ramadan is a month of fasting. It is a month where Muslims observe 30 days where they fast from sun up to sundown. And in this month, Muslims perform more acts of worship. They pray more, they spend more time at the masjid, which is the mosque, and they spend more time in prayer at night. And they spend more time reading the Holy Quran, which is our holy book. And essentially, they try to do more charity, more good deeds, be a part of the community more, be more giving, and everything that entails goodness. This month is meant to be a month where you're reminded to be mindful, and in fasting, you kind of have to be mindful because you have to consciously put in the effort to remember Allah and remember that you cannot eat, you cannot drink, and you have to stay away from certain things. In this month, our good deeds are also multiplied, and that is why you will find a lot of Muslims striving even harder and doing even more in this month because they're trying to get all of the good deeds that they can and trying to gain forgiveness for all of their bad deeds. This month is also the month of the Quran. The Quran was revealed in this month of Ramadan, and it was revealed specifically on the night of Laylatul Qadr, which happens in the last 10 days of Ramadan. You might see Muslims doing even more in the last 10 days, and this is because the last 10 days has a night, which is the Laylatul Qadr, and this night is said to be better than 1,000 months. In that night, we try to do as much as possible, and we try to essentially catch the night, and we don't know exactly when that night is. There's a few narrations on what the possibilities of what that night could be, but it's not known for sure. And I think that's sort of a blessing in it not being known because it makes you want to try every day in those last 10 days rather than if you just knew what that day was, you would only really try as much as you can on that one night as opposed to trying as hard as you can on every single one of those nights. So then the Quran was revealed and it was sent down to the Prophet on this night. And the surah that was revealed to him was Surah Al-Alaq. And this was when he was in the cave of Hira, which is where he used to go to seek solitude. The angel Jibril comes down to him and reads the surah to the Prophet and tells him to read. I will read out a narration for you guys as to what had happened that night. The narration reads, the angel came to him and asked him to read. The Prophet ﷺ replied, I do not know how to read. The Prophet added, the angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it any more. He then released me and again asked me to read, and I replied, I do not know how to read. Thereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time till I could not bear it any more. He then released me and again asked me to read, but again I replied, I do not know how to read. Thereupon he caught me for the third time and pressed me and then released me and said, read. This is the incident that took place at the cave of Hira on the night of Laylatul Qadr when the Quran was first revealed to the Prophet. The Quran was actually revealed in two stages. The first stage is that it had an initial descent. This also happened on the night of Laylatul Qadr. This is when the Quran was revealed in its entirety from the preserved tablet to a place in the lower heavens known as the House of Honor. This is where the Quran is kept with Allah. The second stage is the gradual revelation of the Quran, which is what the Prophet received over the span of 23 years, which happens from the Cave of Hira incident when Angel Jibril comes down to the Prophet all the way up until the Prophet passed away. Some of the surahs actually came down multiple times to the Prophet. For example, Surah Fatiha is one of them. The angel Jibril came down to the Prophet multiple times with Surah Fatiha. I find it to be very beautiful in a sense as well that the entire Quran is with Allah, and it's the same Quran that we read and hold and have and listen to. The month of Ramadan is also the month of forgiveness. It is a month where Allah forgives and He loves to forgive, and we ask for His forgiveness. Humans are made to sin. We are not created perfect, we make mistakes, and Allah is the one who forgives us for those mistakes. Obviously, we try to stay away from making mistakes, but we do the best that we can. This month is also a month of reflection, and it is a month where we reflect on the past year, either from the previous Ramadan or just in general the last couple of months, and we think about what we want to improve on spiritually and how we can become closer to our religion and to Allah and to the Quran. Ramadan has already started now, but I think an important part in the reflection aspect is to really sit down with yourself before the month starts and think about what you want the month to look like and also what you want yourself to look like after the month is done. Because this month is a perfect time to add in the good habits and take away the bad habits. And it shouldn't be seen as something you only do in this month. It should be seen as something that you do after the month is over too. So sitting down with yourself before the month starts and thinking about those things, use a little journal. There's so many Ramadan journals now, which is really nice and cute. So getting yourself one of those or just any old notebook, there's still a lot of days left in Ramadan, alhamdulillah. So there's still a chance for us to change the way that this Ramadan is going. And that could mean taking out a notebook right now and thinking about just one or two things that you either want to add into your daily routines in terms of the religion and in terms of what you could be doing more, or in one or two things that you want to take out and want to stop doing. And in doing just one or two of those things will make it so that it's more realistic for us to continue to do them or not do them after the month is done. This is kind of the same aspect as when the new year starts. Sometimes people put too many things on themselves that they want to change all at once. And if you are able to do it, I think that's great. But sometimes it might be a little bit too much, too fast. So I think it's good to have a slow pace with this. And I think that's part of the beauty of Ramadan coming every single year is that every year we get a chance to do that. And if you do that continuously every year, let's say, for example, in the span of 10 years, you add one good thing and you remove one bad thing. And in that 10 years, if you do that every single Ramadan, you would have taken away 10 bad things and added in 10 good things. Inshallah, Allah gives us a chance to see 10 more Ramadans and even more than that. In my own reflection, something that has been coming up for me continuously is the aspect of gratitude and shukr. Shukr is essentially the same thing as gratitude and it's just being thankful. In the aspect of gratitude here, trying to be grateful for literally every single tiny thing. And either writing it out, talking about it, thinking about it, every time you do something, remember that that thing is coming from Allah. And there is some part of Allah's work and Allah's divinity that has led that thing to come to you. Whether that be a person, whether that be an actual object, an idea, a job, or a program that you're in, anything. And when you are more grateful to Allah, you are also talking to Allah more. You're calling out to Allah more, and what you end up doing is you actually end up making more dua. You end up having a deeper connection with Allah because you recognize Him in everything that you see, in everything that you touch, in everything that you have, and everyone that you have. And so I think that is a very beautiful thing that we could try. I think if everyone in the world was grateful for even one thing that day, we would all be a little bit more happier. Even if that thing is literally just, I'm so happy I have my comfy bed and my comfy pajamas, which is what I have right now. Another part to the connection with Allah is that when you try to understand that everything comes from Him, and in that way, everything is also connected to Him. You might have seen posts like this where it talks about how the orange that you are eating was written for you and nobody else, right? As Muslims, we believe in the concept of rizq, which is sustenance, and that means that everything that you have was meant for you at exactly that time in exactly that place. So think about all of the different supply chain factors that come into getting that singular orange to you on your iftari table, on your plate. And think about in the month of Ramadan, if you're Pakistani and you eat fruit jat, think about when all of the fruit is being cut up and there's that one orange is in there and that orange is being cut up into smaller pieces. Half of it ends up maybe on a family member's plate and half of it ends up on your plate. That half was meant exactly for that family member, and the half that you got was meant exactly for you and nobody else. The last thing that I want to touch on is the structure of making dua lists. This is something that I've been enjoying to do since last year, and it has really changed the way that I've been able to make duas. Having something that is written, that is ready for you, that you have curated for yourself when you want to ask for something is nice to have. Let's say, for example, you write out your dua list for this Ramadan. And by next Ramadan, you go back to that dua list and you go through it and you see all of the things that are on that list that were answered. And they could be small things or they could be big things. In that, you will find that some of them have been answered. And what this does is that it will remind you that Allah is listening and He is there for you and He will answer you. Even if He answered your dua for you to get a cat. Even that. even that small dua, which maybe for some people might actually be big because they've been begging their parents for years, but even in that small dua, you will find that Allah listened to you and He answered your dua. So, a way to structure your dua list so that it encompasses as much as possible is to include the reflection aspect. So, start off by thanking Allah, and this is the gratitude part. List out everything that you can think of, from small to big, that you are thankful for, and write it out and say, "Thank you for this, Allah. Thank you for this, Allah." And then ask for forgiveness. And do the same thing. List out what you want to ask for forgiveness for. So think about your mistakes. Think about things that you've done that maybe you shouldn't be doing. Think about things that you could be doing better, or actions that you're not exactly there yet but want to work on. And ask for forgiveness for each of those specific things. And what this will do is it will make you more aware of those things. And so when you go back to this list every day or every couple of days when you're making your duas, and you ask for forgiveness for those specific things, it will make you more aware of them when you're about to do them or when you are thinking about them. And this will be a way for you to be mindful of the fact that this is something that you need to work on. The next thing that you want to add to your dua list is things that you want. So think about what you want right now, what you want in 5 years, what you want in 10 years. Just go into the future, ask for whatever you want. Do all of that. Could be big, could be small. Write it all down and mention Allah in each of these things that you're listing out. And then ask for your family and your friends. Make dua for them. This could also be a way for you to connect with family and friends and ask them, "Hey, do you want me to make a dua for you for something?" Or, when someone is talking to you about something that's happening to them and they say, "Please make dua for me," this could be a perfect moment for you to think back on those times and put this into your dua list. Another thing you're going to add to your dua list is to make dua for the world and for the ummah. Make dua for the people that are suffering and the people that are in need and people that need Allah's help. Ask dua for them because you never know whose dua will be accepted or when and where it will be accepted. Another thing you're going to add to your dua list is related to the religion and to your spirituality. You want to ask Allah to make you more connected to Him. You want to ask to be more connected to the Quran. You want to ask Him to help you do more good deeds. You want to ask for what comes after this life. You want to ask for protection in the grave and on the day of judgment and in your time of death as well. The last thing you want to ask for is Jannah. List out all of the things that you can think of that you want in Jannah. This could be so fun, by the way, to do this, listing out everything that you want in Jannah. Think of your wildest dreams, the craziest thing that you can think of. There will be things there that we, in our minds right now, cannot even comprehend. So go crazy, write down everything that you want. Ask for the abilities that you want. Like if you want to fly, ask for that. Ask for who you want to meet in Jannah. Do you want to meet the Prophet? Do you want to meet all the other prophets? Do you want to meet the woman in Islam? Ask to meet whoever you want to meet and ask to be with whoever you want to be with in Jannah. You want to be with your friends and your family. So this is my little reflection on this month. I think that this is a very blessed month and it's something that we look forward to so much throughout the year. And it's only really made sweet by the amount of effort that we put into it. And that doesn't necessarily mean, spending every single second of the day. Obviously, we have responsibilities. And so it means to just try your best. And when that day ends, you know that you did everything that you could do in that day. And know that Allah is merciful and He will give you the reward for your effort. I think also another point I want to touch on lastly is that as women, sometimes it might feel like there's not enough time to do the acts of ibadah that we want to do or acts of worship that we want to do because somehow, how do we end up spending more time in the kitchen in the month of Ramadan than any other time? Or at least I do. I spend so much time in the kitchen during the month of Ramadan than in any other month in the entire year. And so I know sometimes it feels like there's not enough time to do all of the things that you want to do in that day, especially if a day is particularly busy. But know that you helping to make iftar or making iftar and serving your family food and doing that, you are also getting so much reward. And you are getting the reward of feeding them, which there's a hadith that says that in feeding a fasting person, you will get the reward of that fasting person. And so I think Allah has made it very easy for us to do as much as we can and try our best. If this Ramadan has not been the way that you envisioned it to be or what you know that it could be so far, just know that there's still days left, right? There's still ways to turn this around and it can become a good ending, even if it wasn't the best beginning. So, yeah, this was the first episode. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day slash night or whenever you're listening. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead of you and a good month ahead of you and a whole good year ahead of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me yap and ramble. Clearly, I might be yapping and rambling as we continue on because I have too many ideas and I want you to hear them all, so stay tuned. And yeah, if you want to stay tuned, this is, oh my god, guys, who am I? Like, comment, subscribe. What the heck? That sounds so weird to say. But yes, like, comment, subscribe, follow the Instagram page, follow the YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you're listening on. Follow the account so that you are notified and updated every time we have an episode. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. There will be more coming, inshallah. Keep me in your du'as this Ramadan, and goodbye.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون